Revealed, the inspiring journey of a maid cast out by a billionaire, her amazing transformation. Maria had dedicated over a decade of her life to the Johnson family, cleaning their pristine home in the affluent suburbs of Oak Ridge. For her, every dusted shelf and sparkling countertop echoed love and tenacity. She had 2 kids, her dreams hung on sending them off to college. The Johnsons were more than employers, they were her family, her heartbeat in this wealthy enclave. So when Mr. Johnson accused her of carelessness over a spilled drink at a lavish party, it felt like a dagger to her chest. "You're fired," he had said, his voice cold as ice. In that moment, her world turned dark. Maria felt the air rush from her lungs. How could he? The months of shared laughter, tears, and endless late-night talks vanished in an instant. Stripped of her livelihood, she stumbled home, each step heavy with disbelief. The upscale community views were merciless, every glance from neighbors screamed disdain. Just a cleaning lady, they'd say, and Maria felt every whispered judgment like a slap. As the bills piled high, she clung to the idea that hard work mattered, but harsh reality soon shattered that illusion. Days turned into weeks. Scrubbing floors for strangers felt nothing like the warmth of the Johnson home. Maria's heart ached each time she recalled their family dinners, the unfiltered joy of birthday celebrations. Alone in her cramped apartment, she stared at toys strewn across the floor, reminders of her children's dreams. Weakness crept in, churning a mix of anger and hopelessness. Was loyalty a fool's errand in a world where a spilled drink could erase a decade of dedication? One evening, feeling crushed, she sought solace at a local community center. What she found was a group of workers like her, grappling with their own stories of hardship and injustice. They were grappling with the same weight of society's expectations. As they shared, their voices became a symphony of resilience. Maria's heart fluttered. These were her people. Their laughter soon replaced her bitter tears. Inspired, she took up a leadership role. She taught them about rights, job searches, and built a support system that felt like a family. With strength finally budding within her, Maria learned of a scandal rocking the Johnsons' company. Unfair labor practices exposed, the community now paying attention. The affluent bubble that once shielded them was starting to crack. She felt a fire ignite within her. This was her chance. No longer just a cleaning lady, she was a voice of change. As the town hall meeting neared, she prepared to confront Mr. Johnson, eager to speak her truth amid an audience ready to listen. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Standing before the crowd, Maria felt raw nerves and hope sewn together. She could feel their anticipation, their breaths held tight in a moment of suspense. With Mr. Johnson beside her, tension crackled in the air like electricity. Would he finally understand? Will her story reverberate through the hearts of the community? Maria took a deep breath, ready to unveil her true worth, but just as she opened her mouth to speak, an unexpected interruption rang out. Would she find her moment, or would the truth slip away once more? Maria stood frozen as a voice cut through the air, drawing every eye in the room. It was Mrs. Johnson, grande dame of the family, her heels clicking across the tile floor as she rushed forward. The elegant woman, once an ally in the kitchen banter during late-night cleanups, now looked alarmed and defensive. "Stop," she exclaimed, her voice sharp enough to crack the tension thickening the atmosphere. Gasps resonated from the audience. They shifted in their seats, eyes darting back and forth between Maria and the Johnson matriarch. "What do you mean, stop?" Mr. Johnson demanded, his brow furrowing. The surprise on his face quickly turned to frustration. Maria's heart pounded in her chest. This was the moment, but everything felt like it was spiraling out of control. "The world deserves to know the truth," Maria declared, her voice steady despite her racing heart. It took every ounce of strength to meet Mrs. Johnson's fierce gaze. "I've been waiting too long to speak. Not just for me, but for everyone who has ever been shut down or demeaned." Mrs. Johnson's face softened slightly, caught off guard by Maria's determination. "Sweetheart, I don't think no." Maria interrupted.
You don't get to silence me anymore. Not now.
She could feel the supportive murmurs from the crowd urging her on, fueling her courage as the audience leaned in.
This was the moment that could change everything.
Maria felt as though a storm was raging in her chest, the weight of her past pushing against the final hurdles in front of her.
Would they stand with her, or would they succumb to the comfort of their gilded lives? Your family has shut us out,
Maria continued, her voice rising above the murmur. For years, we've seen how you treat those beneath you while hiding behind your wealth and status. This isn't just about me, it's about the spirit of fairness and respect that each of us deserves.
Don't we all deserve dignity?
A few in the crowd cheered softly, voices of support creeping into the heavy atmosphere. But Mr. Johnson shot back, anger radiating from him.
This is an absurd spectacle. You think your little uprising will make anything change? You're just a maid. Maria clenched her fists.
It stung, but it only fueled her fire.
I was a maid, yes. But I am no longer just a maid.
She stepped forward, their eyes locked.
And I stand before you a voice a testament to courage. We are not invisible. We are not beneath you. We will be seen and heard.
The crowd erupted with applause, cheers echoing off the walls. It felt as though something monumental was happening, like a tide turning. Mrs. Johnson looked torn between shock and admiration, while Mr. Johnson's face grew ashen, the winds of change swirling around him. But just as the atmosphere seemed to tilt in her favor, Maria noticed a shadow lurking at the back. A man dressed in a crisp suit with an air of authority approached someone she recognized from her days in the Johnson household. He was a lawyer, the kind who could silence anyone with just a flick of his pen.
And he had a plan. Maria!
He shouted with a voice that carried authority.
You really think you can win this fight?
The Johnson family has connections, power, and resources that you will never overcome.
Silence fell over the room once more. Maria's heart raced. What would she do? Would this be the end of her story, or was it the beginning of a fight she had not anticipated?
As she stood there, caught between uncertainty and the spark of rebellion, she could only wonder, when everyone else felt the impact of her words, would she still have the courage to continue standing strong against the storm? The courtroom buzzed like a hive, a fever pitch of whispers and gasps flooding in as Maria faced the lawyer. His tone dripped with confidence, like a poison seeping into the crowd's collective spirit. They weren't just observers, they were wrapped up in the drama, weighing the thrill of rebellion against the chill of tradition.
Do you really think anyone is going to rally behind you?
He continued, his smirk cutting through her resolve.
You're an employee, Maria. That's all you ever were to them.
But in that moment, Maria felt a surge of something deep within her, a defiance that rose like a tidal wave. She took a breath, the weight of her past fueling her forward. I may have been an employee, but that doesn't mean I'm just a cog in their machine.
I'm a person with a voice and a story. You can't erase that.
The murmurs grew louder, a chorus of support circling her like a protective shield. She saw it in the eyes of her friends, her family, and even a few of the Johnsons' guests who had come to admire the glamour but were now captivated by something deeper.
Could they really drown out the whispers of a lawyer with money and influence?
Maria, you're fighting ghosts, the lawyer shot back, his tone explosive.
You're nothing but a fleeting moment in their lives and inconvenience. No, she countered, stepping into the spotlight as her heart reverberated in her chest. No one is an inconvenience.
Not me, not anyone who's ever been dismissed or ignored.
This isn't just about me, it's about every single person who feels unseen.
She could see Mrs. Johnson's expression shift behind him, surprise creeping into her features as she gravitated between her loyalty to her family and the sudden realization that the winds were shifting under her feet. People are more than their jobs, and I stand here as proof of that. Maria proclaimed, her voice rising like a clarion call. Each of us has a right to be respected, to be heard, and to share our truths. A ripple of applause spread through the crowd again, and she finally felt the tide might really be turning. The weight of every diminished dream, every harsh word thrown at her, stood in solidarity with her. She had stepped out of the shadows, and others were stepping forward too. Yet as momentum surged,
she could sense fear clinging to the Johnson's side like a heavy fog.
In the corner, Mr. Johnson clenched his jaw, his gaze locked on Maria with an intensity that felt downright dangerous.
"This is all foolishness,"
he thundered, his voice hoarse with rage.
"You're disrupting our lives for what? Some ridiculous notion of justice?"
The crowd was agitated now, unsure how to respond. Maria felt the heat of their mixed emotions swirl around her, a confusing cocktail of worry and hope. "If not justice," Maria replied, her tone steady, "then for my dignity. For a chance to create a new narrative, a world where we all belong."
With those words, silence fell again. All eyes were on her, the atmosphere crackling with possibility. Somewhere deep inside her, a fire blazed brighter, daunting yet exhilarating. Then, unexpectedly, the lawyer stepped forward once more, the smugness fading from his demeanor.
"Maria," he spoke, his voice softer. "The truth is, every battle comes with a cost.
Are you prepared for what this fight may take from you?"
The air grew heavy with unspoken fears, and Maria's heart raced as she weighed the question.
The fire within her threatened to ignite into an all-out blaze, but at what cost?
Familiar faces loomed large: her family, her friends, the community she had embraced. Was she ready to face the consequences of standing her ground, no matter how noble her cause might be? And as Maria looked back at the crowd, an ensemble of both hope and uncertainty, one thought echoed in her mind.
Maybe the fight was only just beginning. Would her resolve endure, or would she find herself back in the shadows she had fought so hard to escape?
The courtroom hall was thick with anticipation, an electric blanket of tension wrapping around Maria as she faced the lawyer. She felt the weight of every gaze, the hopeful, the skeptical, and even the fearful. Each expression felt like a thread stitching her into this moment. With every heartbeat, her determination grew stronger.
"Foolishness?"
Maria echoed, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade.
"It's called standing up for what's right.
You may see me as a passing phase, but I'm here to make you see people differently." The crowd was turning. She could feel the swell of their support, rolling over her like warm waves. Mr. Johnson's face twisted with disbelief, his arrogance shaking like a leaf in an unexpected storm.
"Make me see you?"
he scoffed, though the confidence in his tone was cracking.
"What do you think you can change? This is bigger than you."
"It's always bigger than just one person," she shot back, her passion swirling around her like a protective cloak.
"But when enough people stand together, the change begins. What happens when employees dare to be seen? What happens when we have the audacity to ask questions?" Silence crept into the room again, as Maria's words took root.
For a fleeting second, she locked eyes with Mrs. Johnson, who had fallen momentarily quiet, her face a frozen tableau.
Was there a flicker of acknowledgement in her gaze?
Maria pressed on, fueled by a blend of hope and fierceness.
"This isn't just my story," she continued, "it's ours.
Every single one of us who has felt belittled for simply trying to get by. We are clever, we are talented, and we deserve space in this world." As her words hit home, an unexpected sound broke through the oppressive air. Her friend Lisa, standing in the back, clapped her hands, a bright spark igniting the fire of applause that cascaded quickly through the crowd. Maria felt herself lifted as if the very applause was an invisible hand, pushing her higher.
"Yes. This is it,"
shouted Lisa, tears sparkling in her eyes. And then the murmurs bloomed into shouts of encouragement, each voice a petal in a blooming flower of rebellion. Mr. Johnson stood frozen, as if he was being swept away by a tide he had not anticipated.
"You think this will change anything?"
he barked, but his voice trembled.
"You'll regret this. You'll be nothing but a whisper once we're done. A challenge."
The room buzzed, tension lacing every heartbeat as Maria felt cradled by the fierce loyalty surrounding her. But a weight hung heavy in the air. Mr. Johnson wasn't the only one who could cause damage. There were powerful stories on both sides, and doubt whispered in her mind like the voice of an old friend, familiar yet haunting.
"What if this costs me everything?" An echo of doubt clawed at her. But before she could linger there, Lisa's shout pierced through the haze.
"Maria, don't let fear silence you.
Remember who you are."
Those words ignited something deep within Maria. She drew in a breath, locking eyes with her support network, each familiar face radiating strength. She was no longer just a woman standing alone, she was a vessel for countless stories and dreams.
"Fear doesn't control me anymore," she exclaimed. "I will not back down."
The crowd roared its approval, a heartbeat of dreams merging with hers as she dared to dream audaciously for change.
Yet, even amidst the cheers, a question loomed in her mind: was fear truly gone? If she could summon this strength, what other revelations lay ahead?
As the applause faded into a hopeful sigh, Maria felt a new resolve, yet suspended between the thrill of victory and the price of her journey. How far would she need to stretch her courage to face the Johnsons, and even more daunting, face the consequence of awakening? The next step beckoned, but Maria steeled herself. She had unearthed a powerful truth, but what would happen when the dust settled and the real fight began? The room began to settle, though the pulsing energy still thrummed in the air like a live wire. Faces in the crowd shifted as Maria took a moment to breathe, to absorb what had just happened. She could hear whispers of admiration and disbelief echoing around her. Each murmur wrapped around her heart, filling the spaces where doubt had tried to take hold. And then there was Mr. Johnson, his figure looming larger than life.
The once untouchable titan of the corporation was now just a man, rattled and lost, desperately clinging to his crumbling facade. Maria could see the cracks forming, and it emboldened her.
"You think you know me," she challenged, stepping forward, drawing attention back to her.
"You call me a whisper, but I've chosen to be a roar. And you can't silence what you don't understand." Gasps rippled through the audience, but Maria pressed on.
"This world has been quiet for too long.
It's been swept under the rug, ignored and disregarded.
And look where that silence has led us: disconnected, marginalized.
No more. We matter. Each of us." The crowd erupted again, their voices merging into a powerful chorus.
Lisa's tears of joy glistened in the soft light, and Maria could feel the love radiating from the faces surrounding her. With each shout for change, her spirit soared higher.
"We are here to claim our space," she bellowed, rallying the energy around her. "We're not just employees or maids or workers, we are human. We have hopes and dreams, just like you."
Her gaze settled on Mr. Johnson, who had turned pale. "Your wealth doesn't define who has a voice in this room today.
We are all valuable." For a moment, the air stood still.
The room was a cauldron of emotions: hope, anger, resilience.
Maria glanced behind her, catching Lisa's eyes once more.
They were shining bright with pride, and in that instant, Maria knew they were not alone in their fight. They were a collective force, but just then, from somewhere near the back, a voice rang out.
"What if they fire you for this?"
A man's voice dripping with skepticism. The crowd quieted, the reality of his words washing over them like an unexpected wave.
What if this isn't worth the risk? Doubt.
It was like a dark shadow creeping in, threatening to steal the light.
Maria's heart raced. Would this be the spark that would snuff out the fire she had ignited? She took a deep breath, summoning everything she had within.
"Maybe, just maybe," she countered, her voice steady now, "they will try to silence me.
But I have something far mightier than fear.
I have hope, and there is no penalty for standing up for what is right." The crowd erupted once more, but this time Maria felt the weight of the doubt lift a little. This was the moment, the turning point where fear surrendered to courage. She was fighting not just for her job but for a future where every story mattered. As the momentum built, a thought gnawed at her insides.
What if the whole company turned against her? What if they used their power to shut her down?
Whatever plans Mr. Johnson had, she knew she was only seeing the tip of the iceberg, but she refused to back down.
Not now. What awaited her in the further depths of this battle? Would sparks turn to flames, or could Maria be left singed?
Questions loomed heavy over her heart as she prepared to take the next step. She would confront her reality. The hope of change against the specter of retribution vividly danced in her mind.
What lay ahead among the turbulent waters of power, when she was standing on the edge of an awakening?
As the roar of the crowd faded into an electrifying silence, Maria felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins. She had spoken her truth, and now it echoed around the room, creating an atmosphere thick with anticipation. Mr. Johnson shifted uneasily in his seat, his expression a mix of anger and disbelief. For a lifetime, he had run this company without questioning its foundation, and now a woman, one of the very people he had dismissed, was challenging everything he believed in. Maria locked eyes with him, her heart racing, not just from fear but from the sheer exhilaration of standing her ground. "Isn't it time we stopped hiding behind these walls?" she called out, her voice ringing clear. "You built this empire on our back, but we are done being dismissed like mere tools." The crowd cheered again, each clap and shout fueling her courage. Maria could see Lisa at the front, nodding passionately, her fists pumping to the rhythm of the rising joy. These moments of connection bolstered Maria's resolve, reinforcing the shared purpose that swirled in the air like a living entity, but doubt still lingered like a dark cloud. She thought of the man at the back who had voiced his concerns. What if things turned ugly? What if Mr. Johnson, in retaliation, fired her and others who stood with her? She breathed in deeply, clearing her mind, focusing on the present. "We are here to rewrite the narrative," she shouted, her voice booming. "We won't let fear dictate our future. Change is brewing, and it starts with us." The audience erupted again, a wave of claps and cheers that washed over her, renewing her strength with every heartbeat. But just as the energy reached a boiling point, Mr. Johnson rose from his seat. Silence fell, heavy and tense, as all eyes turned to him. "Enough," he said slowly, his deep voice slicing through the buzzing hope. "You think you can sway me with your words? You think I'll allow this nonsense to ruin my company?" His eyes flicked around the room, searching for dissent. Sensing the divide he was trying to create, Maria stepped forward again, her heart pounding with the knowledge that this was the moment of truth. "I'm not asking for permission," she said, her words slicing through the tension. "I'm demanding respect. It's not just about me, it's about all of us. Our stories matter. We have the right to voice our frustrations." The air crackled with energy as the crowd shifted uneasily, weighing the tension between power and the need for change. A few whispers of dissent bounced back towards Maria, affirming that there were still hearts-ignited spirits willing to rise against oppression, but just as the atmosphere seemed ripe for breakthrough, Mr. Johnson leaned in, his tone chilling. "You're a fool if you think this won't have consequences, Maria. You will pay for this." Her pulse quickened, and fear threatened to seep through her resolve. What did he mean? Would he strike out at her? But then she recalled the faces in the crowd, each gaze filled with fierce determination. They couldn't go back, they wouldn't go back. "I'm not afraid," she declared, her voice steady. "What you call consequences, I deem as empowerment. And I will not be silenced." With each declaration, she felt liberated. But what would Mr. Johnson's next move be? Was this truly the beginning of a new chapter, or just the calm before an inevitable storm? She stood tall, ready to face whatever came next, her heart racing as uncertainty intertwined with hope. This battle was far from over, and Maria envisioned a future where they could rise together. But what would her boldness cost her? With the room still buzzing with energy, the stakes were raised, and the shadows of the future loomed closer than ever. What was Mr. Johnson plotting, and how far was he willing to go to maintain control? The air was thick with tension, a storm brewing beneath the surface, and as Mr. Johnson stood there glaring, doubt flooded Maria's mind. She couldn't shake the feeling that they were all teetering on the brink of something monumental. This moment held the potential to either shatter everything they knew or ignite a fire that could not easily be extinguished. Mr. Johnson leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as he spoke, each word a venomous dart aimed at Maria. "You're delusional if you think the likes of you can topple this empire." His voice dripped with condescension, laying bare his contempt. He waved dismissively, a gesture that felt painfully definitive, as if he could simply erase her, but Maria squared her shoulders, remembering the late nights spent in the break room with her co-workers, sharing dreams that felt so far away. Each struggle echoed in her heart like a rallying cry. "This isn't just about me," she shot back, a tremor of defiance dancing in her tone. "It's about everyone who feels voiceless here, and there are many of us." A ripple passed through the crowd, a chorus of murmurs blending into something powerful. She could see Lisa's eyes widen with admiration. They were all listening. They yearned for change as much as she did. This was no longer just a personal battle, it was a movement, and it was alive. "You think you can galvanize the workers?"
Mr. Johnson's laughter boomed, hollow and cold. They are afraid to stand up.
They value their jobs more than your bravado. His statement hung in the air, filled with the weight of threats and consequences. Maria felt a pang of fear. What if he was right? She looked around, and her gaze locked with a young woman in the front row. Maybe she saw her own fear mirrored there. But just as quickly, determination sparked in Maria's heart. The thought of surrendering didn't sit well with her. No one should live in fear of their job, Maria proclaimed, pushing through the doubt. We deserve a space where we can voice our concerns without the threat of retaliation, a workplace where we can thrive, not just survive. The crowd reacted, several heads nodding, agreement simmering like embers ready to ignite into flame. They were still scared, but perhaps the flicker of hope that she had ignited was growing brighter. Just as the noise swelled, Mr. Johnson slammed his palm against the table, a gesture that silenced everyone. His eyes held a terrifying fury. I will not be challenged by the likes of you, he spat, and Maria flinched under the force of his words. Then you underestimate us, she cried. We are not just numbers to profit from, we are people. If this company is built on our backs, we will reclaim it, brick by brick. Her passion flared, and as she gestured toward the people behind her, they surged forward slightly, emboldened by her words. She could hear the whisper of hope, rising with each cheer, pushing them closer to a tipping point. It was electrifying, yet could shatter with one wrong move. Mr. Johnson's expression shifted, a storm brewing in his eyes. You're playing a dangerous game, Maria, he warned, his voice softer now but filled with menace. You may want to rethink your strategy. I don't have to tell you how severe the consequences for insubordination can be. Maria took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his threats settle around her like a shroud. She stood taller, fueled by the passion of her peers. If you think suppressing our voices will silence us, you are mistaken. We will not be intimidated. But in the back of her mind, anxiety wove through her thoughts. How far would he go? In that moment, an electric silence fell, the crowd awaiting the outcome, all eyes locked on Maria and the man who controlled their destinies. The present hung by a thread, teetering on a delicate balance between fear and empowerment. What would the outcome be? Would Mr. Johnson carry out his threats, or would change finally begin to unfurl its wings? Maria waited, heart hammering in her chest, as the tension stretched long, pregnant with the unknown. Would this finally be the moment they all whispered about, the point where everything changed? Or would the fear of retaliation snuff it out before it could truly begin? Maria could feel the weight of everyone's gaze on her, a mixture of hope and trepidation. Would Mr. Johnson follow through on his threats? The thought chilled her to the bone, but she refused to let fear dictate her actions. In that moment of quiet, she locked eyes with the young woman again, Sarah. A flicker of courage shimmered in her eyes, and it was all the encouragement Maria needed. Change doesn't come easy, Maria said, her voice steady yet impassioned, but we don't need to stand alone. Look around us. We all know this place isn't what it should be. It's time we take a stand together. A murmur of agreement spread like wildfire through the crowd. Each nod seemed to build a bridge of solidarity, lifting the spirits of those who had felt besieged by the weight of oppression for far too long. Maria felt the rush of energy surge through her, igniting a fire that she had kept safely hidden, too afraid to unleash until now. Mr. Johnson's expression darkened as he realized that his intimidation tactics were not landing the way he had hoped. The power he had wielded so effortlessly began to slip through his fingers. He glared at the assembly, the fury simmering just beneath the surface, but Maria stood firm. Mr. Johnson, you may think this is just a game of power, but it is our lives you're playing with. Maria roared, emboldened by the chorus of murmurs and cheers flowing from the crowd. They were rising together, a collective force tied to the heart of her declaration. What do you all want? He barked, his voice shaky and desperate, betraying his crumbling facade. To be heard, came a voice from the crowd. To have our rights. To matter. Yes. Maria urged, using every ounce of her being to rally them. We are more than cogs in this machine. We are the heart of this company. And together, we can create a future where our contributions are recognized and valued. A wave of applause erupted, drowning out Mr. Johnson's feeble attempts to regain control. The energy in the room shifted dramatically, and a sense of unity washed over everyone present. For the first time, they felt powerful. But just then, Mr. Johnson regained enough composure to address the crowd again, his lips curled in a sinister smirk.
You think you can just band together and demand change? It doesn't work that way. This is not a democracy, it's a business. And businesses are about profits.
His dismissive tone clashed painfully with the collective heartbeat of rebellion that pulsed forward.
Enough!
Maria shouted, frustration boiling over. We are done standing quietly, letting you dictate our worth. We deserve more than to be treated like commodities on a balance sheet. The crowd roared in response, a chorus echoing the strength of their newfound resolve.
For a brief moment, Maria felt invincible.
But as the cheers rang out, a darkness crept into her thoughts.
Mr. Johnson had power.
He had the means to retaliate, to push them back into silence. In that instant, she realized that the victory they sought came with risks they had yet to fully understand. The air thickened with uncertainty once more as Mr. Johnson raised a finger, his gaze icy. I won't forget this, he warned, an ominous thread weaving through his words. What will you do? Another voice challenged defiantly from the back of the crowd.
Will you threaten us with termination?
Or will you try to silence us in other ways? The tension snapped like a rubber band, and behind that bravado, Maria's heart raced. This was about to escalate. As the murmurs turned more heated, she knew they were at a crossroads. They could either back down or make a choice to force change together. What would that choice be, in the face of danger?
Would they band together and risk it all, or retreat into the shadows of fear?
The future hung in delicate balance, and Maria could feel the precariousness of that moment gripping her like a vice. As the air shifted between defiance and a storm waiting to break, she took a step forward, heart pounding.
We are ready for whatever you throw at us, Mr. Johnson. Because together, we have something stronger than fear.
And with that, she braced herself for the coming storm, knowing that the true fight was just beginning. Would they muster the courage to face the inevitable fallout, or would the fury of their oppressor extinguish the flame of change? A hush spread across the room, the air vibrating with unspoken words and a collective breath held tight. Maria could see the determination etched on the faces around her, an array of hope mingled with the trepidation that came with daring to challenge the status quo. Every heartbeat echoed with the promise of change. Mr. Johnson took a step forward, his voice like ice cutting through the solid wall of courage Maria had unintentionally built around them.
You think you can just demand respect?
Your worth doesn't come from shouting louder than me. The challenge hung in the air like a dark cloud, and Maria felt its weight press down, but then came Sarah, stepping closer to Maria's side, her youthful face flushed with a sort of bravery that could ignite even the heaviest doubts. It's not just about shouting, she said, her voice ringing clear. It's about standing for what's right. We won't let fear control us anymore. As the words hung in the air, they stirred a deeper resonance within the crowd. Someone else shouted, we deserve dignity. Followed by another, together, we have strength. Maria's spirit soared. It was as if a dam had broken, people began to voice their thoughts, their dreams for a better workplace. Together, they painted a vision of respect, of teamwork, of mutual recognition. The rush from the audience was palpable. Maria, feeling a surge of electricity, raised her hands to calm them. Let us show him what we stand for, she said, the fire in her voice lighting a path forward.
But with Boris's eyes narrowing menacingly, it became clear that he was a wounded beast in their midst, ready to strike. You want respect?
I can show you what happens when you disrespect authority, he spat. The threat was unmistakable, a weapon ready to silence their voices. The murmurs of fear began to creep back in, pushing against the tide of fury and hope they had begun to build. Maria could sense the shifting ground beneath her feet.
Don't let him intimidate you,
she shouted above the increasing noise. We deserve more than this atmosphere of fear. It's time to speak up and demand our rights, not cower back. A young man, visible through the sea of faces, stepped forward. If we stand together, can he really silence all of us? A ripple of agreement echoed back. Maria took a deep breath, feeling the pulse of unity thrumming within their ranks. In that instant, she felt the power of their collective voice surging through her like a river breaking free of its dam. "This isn't just about us anymore," she said, emotion thick in her throat. "It's about the future of every person who sets foot in this building. We are the ones who make this place run. We are the lifeblood of this company." Their spirits lifted, the crowd grew bolder, emboldened by her words. She could see the doubt begin to dissolve, replaced with a fierce desire to ignite their future together. But in the pit of her stomach, shadows still lurked. What would Mr. Johnson do to protect his grip on power? Each cheer from the crowd pushed the fear deeper into the recesses of her mind, but it would not vanish entirely. As the cheers grew louder, Mr. Johnson clenched his fists, his face contorting with rage and disbelief. He knew he had lost the room, but it was clear he was far from finished. "You all think you are powerful, don't you?" he snarled, eyes glinting with a fierce edge. "Let me remind you of something: I control your futures." It was a stark reminder that they were still facing a formidable foe who would stop at nothing to break their spirit. With conflict looming on the horizon, Maria pressed a hand to her heart, feeling the weight of so much resting on their shoulders. "Enough!" she yelled, surprising even herself with the strength of her voice. "Together, we'll fight for our lives, not just our jobs." She took a deep and steadying breath, heart racing again. "Will you stand with me?" Silence gripped the room fully, replaced by a contemplative pause. Each person took a moment to consider the risk that lay ahead. Slowly, one by one, hands began to rise. A wave of solidarity washed over them, building momentum in a shared decision to take that leap together, to face the storm that awaited. But just as elation began to swell, a sudden thought gripped Maria. Did they know what they were truly getting into? Was she ready to lead them into battle knowing the enemy was out for blood? The air crackled with both hope and fear, and as Mr. Johnson seethed with anger, Maria felt a new kind of determination settling in, one that would change everything. Would they truly stand united, or would the shadows of doubt creep back in, extinguishing their burgeoning light? The courtroom buzzed with a palpable energy. Maria could feel it in her bones. The moment for change was upon them, but the stakes had never been higher. Mr. Johnson loomed over them, an embodiment of the wealth and control they were desperate to break free from. But Maria wasn't backing down. She took a deep breath and steadied her voice, rising above the murmurs of unease. "Together!" she called out, casting a determined glance across the room. "This isn't just about me or what I've faced. It's about everyone in this room. We all deserve dignity, respect, a chance to thrive. This journey has taught me that we have power in unity." The crowd murmured in agreement, the tension easing slightly as more hands began to rise, echoing her sentiment. She saw Lisa, her friend, beaming with pride, ready to stand shoulder to shoulder. With her heart racing, Maria turned to Mr. Johnson, whose eyes were narrowing into slits of frustration. "You can threaten us all you want, but your power is built on our backs. We will not be silenced anymore." Each word felt like a stone thrown into still water, creating ripples of hope around her. No more living in fear. No more silence. The energy grew electric, and Maria felt the crowd thrum with collective strength. Even some of the Johnson family's friends sat up, their expressions shifting from skepticism to surprise. This was what they had been waiting for, a moment of awakening. "Show them!" someone shouted from the back. Encouraged, Maria pressed forward, igniting her passion. "They think we're afraid, that we won't act. But look around. This is not just a room of employees, we are a community." At that moment, she caught Mrs. Johnson's surprised gaze, conflicted, but also intrigued. Maria clung to that, hoping it signaled a crack in the Johnsons' power structure. "We must demand to be seen, to be valued, not just as workers but as human beings. We all have dreams, families, futures we want to protect." As encouragement flowed from every corner, the murmurs morphed into waves of applause, echoing off the courtroom walls. It was a sweet sound, a chorus of hope breaking the silence that had long surrounded them, but Mr. Johnson wasn't finished. "This is foolishness," he yelled, but his voice trembled slightly, betraying the cracks in his once overwhelming facade.
You're risking everything.
Maria stood her ground, heart pounding yet fueled by the knowledge that this fight was for more than herself.
And what if I am? What's the price of silence?
I'm not afraid to fight for something as basic as respect. The crowd erupted once more, united in defiance. This was it, the floodgates had opened.
Together!
They shouted, echoing Maria's sentiment with fervor.
Together! She could see Mr. Johnson's bravado begin to falter.
Gone was the icy calm, he was now alive with the flames of desperation. You're playing with fire, he growled, but the crowd could see the truth, he was the one being cornered. Riding the momentum, Maria stepped closer to him.
Yes, I'm playing with fire,
she said, her voice ringing strong.
And you know what?
I'd rather be burnt in a fight for our rights than quench my spirit just so you can hold power over us.
We're demanding change and we will not back down.
Suddenly, the air felt lighter, as if a weight had begun to lift. The energy was shifting again.
Maria could sense victory looming, tangible in the air. This moment was theirs.
Would they carry through? Mr. Johnson's expression twisted in disbelief as anger warred with fear.
You'll regret this,
he shouted, his voice losing its bite.
Regret? Maria echoed, the lightness of her heart pushing her resolve higher.
I will never regret standing tall for what is right. Today, we take control of our future. Cheers erupted, filling the courtroom to the brim with joy and hope, until they couldn't be contained any longer. Together they were a force, a living testament to the power of unity, a family in their own right, all brought together by their common goal. As the applause rang in her ears, Maria finally felt it, a spark of transformation, a breakthrough.
Neither she nor the Johnsons could ignore.
This was just the beginning, a collective rising that promised change, and she was at the forefront. Her heart swelled with pride. They had come so far, and more importantly, they had all found their voice, their strength, together. The shadows of doubt receded into the background as Maria stood firm, ready to face whatever storm lay ahead, buoyed by the unwavering support of her community. This was the dawn of a new chapter for her, for them all. And for the first time in years, Maria felt free. Now was the time for them to show the world what they stood for together. If you resonated with this story of resilience, you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support for these incredible journeys. Hit that like button now to feed the algorithm and spread this inspiration. And don't forget to comment your thoughts and feelings about this powerful ending. Share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to be part of this movement. Your support matters.